All right, welcome. Today we're going to decode the secret architecture of language. We're going to explore how the absolute tiniest words we use, like in, on, and at, are actually powerful commands that build our entire world inside our minds.
I mean, really think about it for a second. We use these words all the time, completely on autopilot. But what if they're more than just, boarding grammar rules? What if they're the invisible instructions our brain uses to literally construct a map of reality itself? Okay, so here's our game plan for today. We're going to start with this big idea, thinking of prepositions as a kind of mental GPS. Then we'll break down the 3 basic ways we define space, look at how we place things relative to each other, inject a little bit of motion into the picture, and finally, and this is the really cool part, see how this whole system gets used for totally abstract ideas.
All right, let's dive right in with this central metaphor. For a minute, just forget everything you learned about grammar in school. I want you to think of prepositions as the fundamental code for your brain's internal positioning system. They're the little commands that tell you where everything is. Every single time you hear something like, the keys are on the table, or the car is in the garage, your brain isn't just processing words. No, it's executing a spatial command. It instantly places an object on a surface or inside a container on your mental map. And this whole process happens so fast, it's practically invisible.
So you might be wondering, how does this whole mental GPS actually work? Well, it all boils down to 3 fundamental building blocks for defining any location, as a point, as a surface, or as a volume. Let's dig into each one. Okay, first up we've got at. This one's the easiest. It basically treats a location like a single abstract point in space. It has no length, no width, no depth. It's literally that little red pin on the map that says, you are here.
And what's really cool is how this works across different scales. At the door isn't inside or outside. It just marks a specific meeting point. At Seville takes an entire city and shrinks it down to a single dot on a map. And at 34 Oxford Street pinpoints one specific address. The scale changes dramatically, but the concept, a single point, stays exactly the same. Okay, so from a single point, we're now adding a dimension. Let's talk about on. Suddenly, our location isn't just a dot anymore. It can be a line that has length, or a flat surface with length and width, but crucially, still no depth. And you can see this playing out right here. A note is on the flat surface of the door. Someone lives on a road, which is basically a long line. A ball rolls onto the goal line, and the books are resting on the surface of the shelf. Each one of these defines a 2-dimensional space. All right, time to add that 3rd dimension, and for that, we use the word in. Think of in as defining a location that can actually hold something. It's a space that has boundaries, an area, or a full-blown 3-dimensional volume with height, width, and depth. So a park is a big enclosed area you can be in. A pocket is a tiny little volume. A school, well, you go into the building. Heck, even a country is just a massive area with borders. The key idea here, the thing that connects them all, is this concept of containment. And this is where it gets really interesting. The preposition we pick isn't actually about the physical place. It's about how our brain chooses to see it. When you say, I met him at Seville, you're picturing a dot on a map. But the moment you say he works in Seville, poof, the city expands in your mind into a huge area filled with streets and buildings. And it's the exact same logic here. This one's brilliant. If you say the child is on the grass, you probably picture a nice, short, mowed lawn, a surface. But if you say the child is in the grass, your mental image totally changes, right? Now the grass is long, it's a volume you can be inside of. One little word and the entire picture in your head transforms. And get this, sometimes the difference is huge. He threw the stone at me. That's an attack, right? I'm the target. It's an act of aggression. But change just one word. He threw the stone to me. And now it's an act of cooperation. The entire human intention flips, all based on that one tiny preposition.
Okay, so we've got our building blocks down, points, surfaces, and volumes. But the world isn't just one object floating in space, right? Things exist in relation to each other. So how do we map that? Well, that's the next level, and it's all about perspective. And our language has this really elegant, simple grid system for this, basically built on pairs of opposites. You've got your vertical stuff, above and below, over and under, your horizontal stuff, in front of and behind. and then just general closeness, by or beside. But even within that grid, there are these super subtle but really important differences. Take above and over. A castle can be above a valley, which just means it's at a higher elevation somewhere. But a doctor leans over a patient. See the difference? Over implies you're directly vertical and usually pretty close. That tiny distinction is visually critical. All right, so far, everything on our mental map has been standing still. But of course, that's not how the real world works. Things move. So let's add some action into the mix and see how prepositions bring our language to life. I mean, this is basically language as animation. You can almost see it. Up and down, that's your vertical movement. Across and along sketches out the horizontal. Towards gives you a target, a destination. And around, well, that draws a circle. We're literally tracing paths in our mind's eye with these words. Okay, and this is my favorite part. This is where things get really wild. It turns out our brains are so unbelievably good at mapping physical space that we just decided to, well, hijack the whole system to talk about things that aren't physical at all. Just think about it for a second. Danger isn't a physical container, but you can be in danger. Average isn't some line on the floor, but your grades can be below it. Control isn't a fence, but someone can be beyond it. See what's happening? Our brains took the concrete language of physical space and just slapped it onto abstract ideas. And why? Well, why reinvent the wheel? The system for mapping space is already there. It's powerful, it's efficient, so our minds just use it as a metaphor for everything else. And if you want to see just how powerful and efficient this system is, look no further than the humble word over. It can mean position, destination, passage, orientation, a result, a static condition, or even something in motion. That's 7 completely different meanings, all branching off from one simple spatial idea. It's beautiful, elegant engineering. So, the next time you use a simple word like on or beyond, just pause for a second. Remember, you're not just talking, you're firing up this incredibly complex GPS inside your own head. These tiny little words we barely notice, they are the architects of our reality. They build the maps we use to find our way, not just through the physical world, but through the world of our own thoughts and ideas. And that leaves us with one big question to chew on. If prepositions are doing all this work behind the scenes, what other invisible rules of language are out there, quietly shaping the very way you see the world?